Elias Ward didn't realize something was wrong until the message arrived at 3 a.m. Valarith timing, not human. The interface on his desk flickered, and a crystalline glyph unfolded into a shimmering projection of his alien friend Rika. Her facets looked dimmer than usual, her voice tight with undertones he couldn't translate. "My mother has requested your presence," she said. "Not asked, not invited, requested." For Valarith, that word carried weight Elias didn't fully understand. Even after 3 years working as a human liaison on their luminous world of Carven, he still struggled to read their hidden meanings. He sat up straighter, rubbing sleep from his eyes. "Your mother wants to see me?" Valarith matriarchs didn't casually meet humans. They governed families, territories, and sometimes entire resonance districts. They were powerful, ancient, and impossible to read. Their language relied on shifting light patterns, subtle harmonic tones, and gestures humans weren't biologically built to perceive. Rika hesitated before responding, a rare and unsettling sight. "Yes, Elias, she insists you come today." Insists. Another heavy word. Elias felt a prickle down his spine. "Did I do something, offend someone?" "If you had," Rika said, "you wouldn't be receiving an invitation. You'd be receiving a summons. This is different." That didn't comfort him at all. The transmission ended abruptly, another sign of tension. Valarith rarely ended conversations without closing harmonics, a polite tonal farewell. Rika skipped them entirely. Elias swung his legs off the bed, tension tightening in his chest. He'd learned to trust his instincts in alien environments, and right now those instincts screamed that something wasn't right. He replayed the message in his mind, Rika's dim facets, her clipped tone, the way her resonance cadence wavered. Even he could tell she was hiding something. By the time he stepped outside into the cool morning air, Carven's twin suns casting soft blue light over the crystalline landscape, Elias felt like he was walking into an exam he hadn't studied for. Rika waited for him near a hovering skiff. Her body held stiffly, her movements precise and tense. Nothing like her usual excited jitter of energy. When he approached, she didn't greet him. She simply said, "My mother is expecting us. Do not speak unless she addresses you. Do not move unless she acknowledges it. And above all, don't react to her tone." Elias blinked. "What tone?" Rika's facets dimmed further. "That's the problem, you won't know." Elias stepped deeper into the crystalline home, feeling as if the air itself thickened around him. Soft waves of bioluminescent color shimmered beneath his boots, shifting with every movement he made. The Valarith didn't build houses. They cultivated them, and this place felt less like architecture and more like a living heart chamber, pulsing with gentle light. Each step echoed faintly, a metallic chime that made Elias second-guess whether he was walking on a floor or on some delicate organ he wasn't meant to touch. Rika kept a few paces behind him, unusually quiet. Normally she narrated everything with excitement, explaining Valarith customs, translating gestures, and laughing when Elias inevitably misunderstood something. But today she said nothing. Her facets, usually bright, were dim, as if she were trying not to draw attention. That silence weighed on him heavier than the glowing walls. Then Veshkala emerged from deeper within the chamber. Elias had seen Valarith elders before, but none like her. She moved with an almost liquid grace despite being entirely crystalline. Light fractured off her body in cascading shards, scattering rainbows across the walls in patterns Elias couldn't interpret. She approached slowly, each step resonating with a soft harmonic thrumming that vibrated through his chest. She stopped only a meter from him. Her tall form towered over him like a polished obsidian monument. Then she emitted a sequence of tones, 3 soft pulses followed by one deep resonant hum. Elias froze. Greetings among her species varied wildly depending on intention, hierarchy, and unspoken context. For all he knew, she had just said, "Welcome, state your purpose, or prepare for judgment." He attempted a respectful nod. The moment he did, Veshkala's body flickered in a sharp burst of violet light. Rika flinched. Elias stiffened. Human gestures often confused Valarith, and he wasn't sure if he had offended a matriarch or surprised her. Without warning, Veshkala began circling him. Slow, deliberate steps. Her arms traced arcs through the air, leaving faint trails of glowing motes behind them. Elias resisted the impulse to turn with her. Rika had once warned him that following an elder's movement at the wrong moment could be seen as a challenge. So he stood perfectly still, feeling Veshkala's presence pass behind him like a cold wave of silence. She paused at his back. A single piercing crystalline note rang out. It echoed through the chamber, vibrating through the floor and straight up his spine. Elias felt as though she was reading something inside him, something not even he understood. When she finally faced him again, her glow dimmed to a deep, shimmering violet. Rika whispered under her breath, "Oh no," and Elias realized with absolute certainty that whatever Veshkala wanted from him, it wasn't simple, it wasn't casual, and it definitely wasn't safe. Elias sat cross-legged on the smooth, crystalline floor, trying to mimic the Valarith posture as best he could. Around him the chamber pulsed with muted colors, dimmer than before, as though the entire home was holding its breath. What passed for a meal among the Valarith had begun, though it involved no eating, only touching textured crystalline shards that represented emotions or memories. Elias had practiced this ritual before, but never in the presence of a matriarch. Never with so many eyes fixed on him. Veshkala lifted a shard shaped like a spiraling helix. Her facets glowed a deep amber that Elias couldn't interpret. She pressed the shard to her chest, and the room hummed with a resonance like distant thunder. Every Valarith present lowered their heads in respect, except Elias, who didn't know what he was supposed to do. Rika gave him a tiny nudge to bow slightly. He followed her lead without hesitation, pulse racing. Then Veshkala turned her full attention to him. She reached for a different shard, this, one fractured, jagged, and glowing faintly blue, and extended it in his direction. Elias stared, unsure. Was he supposed to touch it, accept it, ignore it? The last time he participated in a Valarith memory sharing, touching the wrong shard had symbolically declared a willingness to join a resonance pact he didn't understand. He wasn't eager to make another mistake. He glanced at Rika for guidance, but she looked terrified. Her facets flickered in a frantic pattern he had never seen before. She didn't shake her head or gesture, but the fear in her stillness told him one thing clearly. She didn't want him to touch it. Veshkala lowered the shard slightly, her amber glow shifting to a sharper violet tone, one Elias recognized. That color meant intensity, focus, demand. He swallowed. "I don't understand," he whispered. A sharp crystalline ping echoed through the chamber. Veshkala's body pulsed with swirling reds and blues as she emitted a sequence of tones so complex Elias felt them more than heard them. They vibrated through his bones, like she was speaking directly into his body instead of his ears. Rika finally broke her silence. "She's asking why humans carry such unstable resonance," she whispered urgently. "She wants to know why your heartbeat pattern is irregular compared to ours. She thinks it means something." Elias frowned. "My heartbeat?" Before Rika could clarify, Veshkala extended two sharp fingers toward his chest, coming dangerously close to touching him. The entire room stiffened. Elias felt his breath hitch as the matriarch leaned close, studying him with unnerving precision, as if she could see the blood rushing beneath his skin. Every Valarith in the room watched in absolute silence. Elias realized then that this wasn't a ceremony. It wasn't a cultural exchange. Veshkala wasn't curious. She was examining him, measuring him, for something she believed only a human could survive. The moment the first tremor shook the crystalline floor, Elias thought it was just part of the ceremony, a soft vibration, a shifting tone beneath his feet, normal for a home made of living light. But then the ground shuddered again, harder this time, sending a rippling wave across the chamber walls. Valarith around him stiffened, their bodies pulsing with panic colors he didn't need translation to understand. The air vibrated with low, uneasy harmonics. Rika gasped. "A resonance quake? This deep? It shouldn't be possible." Before Elias could ask what that meant, the chamber let out a deep, groaning echo, like the entire structure was crying out. Cracks of dimming light crawled along the walls. The living lattice was struggling to hold itself together. Veshkala reacted instantly. Her facets flashed a brilliant white, and every Valarith in the room dropped to one knee. Elias remained standing only because he didn't know what else to do. The matriarch raised an arm, producing a resonant tone that seemed to force the quake to hesitate for a moment, like she'd pressed a hand against a raging storm. But even Elias could sense it. The structure was failing. Rika reached for him, her voice trembling with a tone he'd never heard from her before. "Humans aren't affected by resonance collapses the way we are. Our bodies amplify the quake, yours doesn't." Another tremor hit, and Elias staggered as the chamber dimmed again. Veshkala turned toward him with deliberate, cutting precision. For the first time since he'd arrived, her gaze felt readable, urgent, commanding, desperate, She extended a hand, not in greeting, not in ceremony, but in demand. Rika's voice dropped to a whisper. She brought you here because you're immune to resonance dissonance. She needs you to stabilize the core node. Elias blinked. I don't even know what that means. There is a crystalline heart beneath this home, Rika said, grabbing his arm. It harmonizes with every Valerith body in the district. When a quake hits, we can't approach it. It overloads our resonance. But a human, her facets glowed with frantic hope, a human could survive long enough to reset it. Veshkala's towering form stepped closer, her tones ringing like a command bell. She pointed toward a narrow descending passage behind her, one Elias hadn't noticed before. A single path, glowing faintly, leading into the living heart of the structure. The quake hit again, harder. Shards of dim light rained from the ceiling. Valerith cried out in painful harmonics as their bodies reacted violently to the destabilizing resonance. Elias felt the weight of every gaze in the room fall on him. He wasn't a warrior. He wasn't trained for this. He was just a liaison, just a human trying not to offend his friend's mother. But now Veshkala lowered herself onto one knee, an unthinkable gesture for a matriarch, and bowed her head to him, not a command, a plea. Elias's pulse hammered in his ears. He knew one thing with absolute clarity. He hadn't been invited here. He'd been chosen, and now the entire district was depending on a human who barely understood what was happening.